So thank you for coping with that awkward silence. As I've just mentioned to a few, I'm really late to the programme this year. I have the pleasure of being on the panel that helps select speakers, and I did put this pitch in earlier in the year, and didn't get through, which is fine because even people like Toby Parkins didn't get through, so it was quite hard. It's really hard to get on the speaker list this year. So I was like happy to kind of step in at the last minute, and this is a bit rough. It's very MVP, but I just thought I'd just share with you some of the stories that I've experienced. I'll just tell you a bit about me. Excuse me. This is official me. I am a chartered PR consultant, so what that means is I tend to do a lot of work around PR and communication strategy with different organisations. So my clients at the moment are people like University of Oxford and their social science division. I've got an amazing new project starting around the National Consortium for Intelligent Medical Imaging, so it'll be about AI in healthcare. So I tend to do quite meaty comms projects. Sometimes I think I'd just quite like to do PR for clotted cream, or like ice cream or something, but I kind of like these sort of like meaty things. So as part of my kind of becoming qualified as a PR consultant, because before I was a PR consultant, I was a journalist, which I will come on to in a minute, I decided to get qualified in PRness. So I did a qualification back in 2012 called the CIPR diploma, and I started looking at Agile back in 2012 as part of that diploma process, so I had to do a research project. So I've spoken Agile on the beach a few times over the years, mostly about applying Agile to PR, marketing. Also, I did a talk last year about the Agile Guide to Life, so I talked about how you can apply it to parenting and divorce and dating, and my friend Claire applied it to grief and other things. So yeah, I'm just very interested in how Agile and the manifesto and principles can apply to stuff that's not techie. And I tend to, I'm not a Scrum Master or anything, I'm not technically qualified in Agileness, but I'm really passionate about how you can apply Agile stuff to other things. So I wanted to share some of that with you guys today. So my actual agency is called Agile PR. And then the reason I love Agile, because this is the other me, this is my not professional me. So I'm a frazzled single mother. I just like the fact that Agile fits into my life, and it means that I can kind of focus on being 80% awesome, not 100% awesome. And that's another aspect of what I'm quite interested in. So I'm actually going to the Scrum Alliance Global Gathering in October in Vienna to talk about operating 80% awesome. So if anyone wants to talk about that later, I'm really happy to talk about that. And this is also me, and this cracked me up. Last month, I won Outstanding Independent Practitioner with my professional body, so the CIPR Excellence Award. So this is a national award for PR people. And specifically, I believe my Agile application of Agile to PR is what helped me win this award. But the sponsors sent me this mug with my face on it, and it was the weirdest corporate gift ever. So I was like, I've given it to my boyfriend, he loves it. He smugly drinks his coffee in the morning, but weird corporate gift that I just got this week. But thanks Kantar Media for brightening up my day. So, I wanted to talk to you a bit about a really sort of niche, random bit of my work that I do as an independent PR practitioner, and that is I am the UK feature writer for the Scrum Alliance. So I write long-form features, 2,000 words. I've got a commission this week for one of the speakers at Agile on the Beach this year for a 2.5-word feature, another one for a 1,700-word feature. And originally I started working for writing for their magazine, which was called Agile Vox. And what's happened is they sort of absorbed that now into an online platform, a news website called Agile Matters. So if you're members of the Scrum Alliance, you would have been able to access the magazine previously, but now it's kind of open access on Agile Matters, and I can show you the link a bit later. But it's a weird kind of niche area of journalism. I'm quite proud of like the fact that I can write about application of Agile in the most amazing of places. My previous job before I was a PR practitioner was I trained as a print journalist, so it comes quite naturally to me that I'm able to write about this. We try and, it's mostly, because it's a Scrum Alliance, we try and write about Scrum, but to be honest, some of the examples I'll show you are not particularly Scrummy, they're more kind of approach, it's sort of a broader Agile approach. So this is just taken from, this lady looks quite stern in this photograph. This is just taken from the magazine from a couple of years ago, and this is about application of Agile at Cambridge University Press, which is one of my case studies that I'll come on to in a minute. But it was just one of those roundabout things when I was invited to write for AgileVox, and there's a chap called Jez Smith who has written a book about application of Agile and marketing, and my editor, who's called Ryan, got in touch with him, who then got in touch with a recruitment consultant in Portishead, who then contacted me saying, do you know anyone who could write about Agile? And I was like, me, I could do it, I'll do it. And it's ace, it's like, they pay quite well, and I get to travel the country and write about this stuff. So excuse me while I geek out a little bit. Okay, the first assignment I had was for a social enterprise called Acorn Aspirations. And that social enterprise was founded by this lady who's called Elena. She was an international businesswoman, and what was really interesting about her is that she had a 14-year-old daughter at the time. I think this was 2017, end of 2017 I wrote this. So her daughter, Victoria, was 14, and she was like, I don't like how in this country, education, like kids are going into an education factory. All they're being taught is how to take exams and how to do school. We're not learning anything about entrepreneurship. We're not learning about failure properly. So she set up Acorn Aspirations, and they run hackathons every so often, and they've supported hundreds and hundreds of teenagers through hackathon weekends where they can all come together, and if someone's got a business idea, they can pitch it to a group of teenage coders, techies, and then within a weekend they can create a mini business. And what I loved about this assignment is obviously the energy that you see in the room. Just see if I've got this one. So this is a girl called Caitlin who's pitching one of her business ideas. And this lady here was she brought in the actual Scrum aspect of how they ran their hackathon. So rather than obviously having a two-week sprint, they broke all the activity down into 1 hour sprints. So it would be a case of working with the kids, assigning them a task to do, coming back with and reporting back within an hour, and then they'd be on to the next sprint. And the other interesting thing was that none of the kids really knew they were doing Agile. It just came really naturally to them that they should work that way. So they never labelled it up as such. It was just about how can we make this fun, engaging, inspiring for young people. The other, I don't know if you can see the background. This was in ThoughtWorks office in Soho. So it was the coolest office. It gives you an insight into like amazing workspaces. So there's beanbags everywhere. They've got the breakout spaces. There's just, I'm such a geek that I like going into a workspace where you just see Kanban everywhere. Like I just like to see post-it notes everywhere, user stories, like index cards, and it was just a lovely space to work, and they were quite lucky to be able to kind of borrow this space to cover this story. But one of the most lovely stories that I got out of that entire article was about this girl called Caitlin. So Caitlin is 12, so she's probably like 14, 15 now, and she has dyslexia. And she has discovered that she can use Kanban and some of the Agile principles to help her organise herself, sort out her homework. She can mind map her tasks. But she's also been working on, she pitched an app at this hackathon around how can we use virtual reality to enable people to kind of share their experiences of being dyslexic. So I think her business is called Cypher. She's probably still on Twitter. But I loved her kind of natural entrepreneurial spirit. I love that I think kids are naturally agile. I've spoken before last year about how my 8-year-old has really taken to it, and she just randomly started putting a Kanban board up on her bedroom door. So we have one in our kitchen at home now, just for like general household tasks. And so I met her mum as well, and things like her mum would buy her Sharpies for her birthday, just to enable her to use these tools, just to kind of plan their life. So she was awesome. And then another major feature I had was with Cambridge University Press. So Cambridge University Press, sorry, I've got to refer to my cards because it's not quite fresh in my head. So Cambridge University Press, was anybody in the land registry one just now? So they're 180, you're 180 years old, aren't you? Yeah. Not that I'm getting competitive here, but this is 400 years old, this organisation. So they publish obviously texts, journal articles, academia, and I work with Oxford now, so I've seen the extent of academia that's like, it's at next level for Cambridge and Oxford. And they were looking at a way of actually trying to house all of their academic texts that they publish onto a single platform. And that's called Cambridge Core. This lady is called Vicky Drummond, and she's effectively the business owner. So she was the one who commissioned and is directing the project. And this is Claire Tunstall. She looks really cross. She's not a cross person. She's awesome. And she was the first sort of Agile and Scrum practitioner within Cambridge University Press. So she guinea pigged it on a smaller project. And now they've rolled it out absolutely at scale within this organisation. So they have embraced Agile. They have 2,500 employees, and they now have 80 Scrum Masters and product owners ever since they took this on. So I've got a note here. Claire Tunstall used to be an antique dealer before she went into tech project management. And so Cambridge Core, the platform, I got another photo. So Cambridge Core, I haven't got a photo of it. It now houses books and journals from 6 other publishing platforms into one. And at the time I wrote this piece, which was about 2 years ago, they had had 12 million journal articles downloaded and 6 million chapters downloaded. And what I found really interesting about this feature is it was my first experience, I suppose, of really decent, intensive UX research. So you're welcome to shout and say that's not that interesting, Rachel, but they did 10,000 user surveys and 50 face-to-face interviews to come up with their 4 personas. And I don't know if you can see, they've got their persona posters behind them. And previously, everything with Cambridge University Press was absolutely geared to the academic author. So you can imagine there's a little bit of a kind of academics are interesting creatures. There's a lot of kind of ceremony around them, and their main focus in life is to get published in a journal. That's why they exist. And previously, the entire kind of organisation was geared around the academic author. What they've realised through that process of the research is that their lead persona is actually a PhD student, and she's called Rachel, she's 28, and what they realised that she, sounds really similar to me actually, she would search manically and, you know, late at night, early hours of the morning, gazillion windows open, so they knew that their platform had to withstand the manic searching, online searching of academic texts that this persona, Rachel, would require. And what they have said is that of the 4 personas, they have a researcher, the PhD person, a librarian, author, and a publisher. And what Vicky said is that, and I'm sure this is common, but I hadn't really seen it before at that time, is that they reference their personas every single day, so that's behind every single decision they make. What would Rachel think of this? What would Bernard, the academic, think of this? And the other thing I quite liked about this at the time was But they had 300. They commissioned the graphic design for the website, for the platform, but they did all of the development in-house, and they have 300 of their development team are based in Manila. So another part of my job is I do entry-level agile project management training for PR consultants. So I quite often get that, it's not going to work for us because we're in disparate teams and our offices all over the place. So you could see they've worked really hard to make it work for them using Skype, etc. So their stand-ups are obviously headsets sat down, but they have the same stand-ups as they would normally would. And they've worked really hard to instill it into the culture of the organisation. So this chap, I can't remember his name, is one of the development people from Manila, and he described to me how painful it used to be when they were using Waterfall and how it's transformed his whole team on that side. But also they ran, have you been into a lean coffee session? So this is their lean coffee session where they're able to kind of help share the culture of Agile across the organisation. So you can see that in action. They did say it took a lot of time and investment to make Agile work for them. So the third case study I want to talk to you about, which I was just saying, it's Kim, isn't it? Kim was on just before me. They presented about the land registry, and this is a similar project to that. So I worked on a big feature about the digital apprenticeship service, which is part of it's a government digital service project. They're based in Coventry. This is the programme director, who's Eileen Logie, and it was another example for me of Agile at scale. So they started classically, as you often see, with one development team in one corner of the room doing stand-ups and everyone else going, what the hell are they doing, what a load of show-offs, to gradually spreading throughout their whole department and then up into policy. So what happens with the government digital service is there was a major reform several years ago which moved, it was to do with how you run an apprenticeship, and it was to do with how it's funded. But what tends to happen is you have a piece of policy that comes down from Policyland government, and then it gets brought into the digital teams that then have to implement that in terms of what that looks like on their platform. So they were looking for a platform to enable different, so the user groups are training providers, colleges, etc., employers, obviously, and then to some extent the apprentices themselves. They can find an apprenticeship. And what was interesting about this one for me was how they've grown it at scale. So they started with 20,000 employer service users, and they've grown to 150,000. They now have 2,000 training providers. They had, I've put here, Mexican wave of stand-ups. So when I was there, you've got the 16 development teams across a massive open plan office. And what I also find with the PR training is people say, we can't possibly implement Agile or Kanban in our office because we don't have any walls. And these guys, well, they're wrapping user stories on glass offices. They have, obviously, whiteboards on wheels that they can wheel out. And I think it's for me, it was just another example of how I can go into a workspace and just totally geek out about everything that's happening there. The other thing I quite liked was, I got a photo. This is Gary. Has anyone experienced the GDS assessment? Yeah. How horrible was it? Okay, so any government digital service project has to go through, I've put here, 5 hours of assessment across 18 criteria. Yeah, okay, so they go through with a fine-tooth comb 18 areas of criteria to make sure that your platform is up to scratch for a government digital service product. That's right, isn't it? It cracks me up because I look at a lot of government digital service products and they just look so awful, don't they? But it's kind of any Any kind of, if it's got the rubber stamp of a government digital service product, then it's been through this assessment criteria. So Gary has been through 14 of these. So he's really experienced in that, and he introduced Agile into the government digital service. He started off with a pilot project, which was the Find an Apprenticeship service. So he's almost like this kind of Agile cowboy in this office in Coventry. And he was the one who described when we started using it, everyone thought we were insane. Everyone thought we were just showing off. But he was a really interesting guy to talk to. And the other thing I quite liked about this one, from a leadership perspective, they have their roadmap. This is probably normal to a lot of people, but at the time I was like, I really like this. They've got a really clear kind of end-to-end roadmap of how the service is going to continue to develop in line with potential policy changes. I presume this is updated quite a lot now, but this was kind of Eileen, the programme director's brain dump of how she saw it rolling out. Also, this is where I found the most sexy stationery collection I've ever seen. And yeah, got all kinds of different post-it notes. And these giant ones, I love the giant ones. I use them at home quite a lot. You can get them from Sainsbury's. Okay, so I've also written about Agile on the beach. I love Agile on the beach. I've got like a bit of a vested interest in Agile on the beach because the team are actually based in my office now, and they were before. And I've known Toby and Mark Smith and Alan for a really long time. But Agile on the beach was really agile from the beginning. So in 2011, they only had 80 speakers. And now we've got 80 delegates. In the first year, they had 80 delegates because Mike and Toby got together. She was like, should we just have a get-together of people and just talk about Agile stuff? Yeah, that'd be nice. And then, so that's gone to 400 delegates and global speakers, up to 50 speakers from across the world. I just love the fact that people have turned it into part of their holiday to come to Falmouth. So I was really proud to be able to write in an international magazine about what is happening in this corner of the UK where we've got amazing tech opportunities. And yeah, it's just, also, when I did Agile on the Beach, I got to I interviewed James Grenning, who's one of the original 17. And he was awesome. He was admiring my shorthand, and I was like, oh, but it's you. He was an interesting one. He was almost sort of like, he's obviously a bit of a maverick, but he was uncomfortable about a few things. He said, I publicly object to the word sprint. I think it implies fast, but doesn't represent sustainability or quality. So yeah, it was great to meet him and just have that opportunity on my doorstep, being based in Cornwall. So aside from some of my journalistic antics, I thought I would share with you a couple of examples from my Agile Project Management for PR course. Can I just ask that you don't tweet this slide because I'm not streaming, because of so short notice I haven't had permission to use this. So I do Agile Project Management for PR, so I run 5 courses a year, and I get loads of different interesting delegates from all sorts of different backgrounds. And I just wanted to share some stories from that. So probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had the PR manager for Primark come on the course. And what blew my mind about Primark is, and it's really relevant for this time of year, she, probably 3 years ago, when Love Island was really big, and they had all these slogans like 100% not my type on paper, a buyer at Primark decided the week before the Love Island final that they wanted to produce Love Island t-shirts in time for people to buy for the final. And so basically it took them 48 hours to turn around a licensing agreement with the production company for Love Island, for Primark, to print these slogan t-shirts. And they found a factory, I think, in Jersey to print the t-shirts, which got turned around on the Wednesday, which meant they could hit the shop floor sort of Thursday, Friday. And so from a PR planning perspective, which is my area of specialist geekery, there's no time to plan any PR about that. She had to really focus on an MVP in terms of, well, how can I get any kind of recognition for these Love Island t-shirts, these slogan t-shirts? So all she did was she had to get them on the backs of Holly Willoughby and Caroline Flack and possibly Felix Schofield. And it just, that whole business process, and also the kind of like the value that delivers by working that fast. So they knew that in putting these Love Island t-shirts on the shop floor, that it would increase basket. People would come in specifically to buy them, and then they'd spend another 30 quid on other tat in Primark, because that's what you do when you go to Primark. So it's an actual business model to make money off the back of the Love Island final. It was genius, but it meant that PR planning doesn't exist for her. That particular PR manager, she was called Holly. The day after the course that I was running, there's this phenomenon called Christmas in July, which is happening round about now. And that is where journalists and PRs get together and they talk about what products are going to be in the shops at Christmas. And it's all geared around the fact that magazine industry, they have such a long lead time before they publish magazines. And I'm like, can someone positively disrupt the magazine industry, please? Because this is ridiculous. And I just said to Holly, I was like, but you can't even possibly know what your products are going to be by the time Christmas comes around. And she said, yeah, that's absolutely true. I probably am aware of maybe 50% of our product line for this December. So she found the whole Kanban approach really helpful for her. And literally the next day, she got back to her office and sent me this picture of her Kanban. I think she's colour-coded it. So she's got upcoming, planning, in progress, live. Look, there's a note here. Harry Potter, they've got all that Harry Potter licence stuff, haven't they? What else has she got? Oh, so she's the colour-coded there. Campaigns and special projects is in yellow. Partnerships in green. Influencer activity. A huge amount of her work was around how can I get my products with influencers. So I've lost touch with Holly. I don't know where she is, so that's why I couldn't get permission to share this, but I just love that the PR department was able to start implementing some of the agile way of working. And the other picture, the hearts and star shapes, I was delivering the course in Newcastle, and my training centre, I don't think they fully understand why I use post-it notes quite so liberally, and they didn't send me any post-it notes. So I got there and I was like, there's no post-it notes. I normally have about 10 Sharpies just in my handbag anyway, so I dug those out. So I ended up running to Paperchase at the station, and on my course we plan out a really complex PR campaign about Ford and driverless cars. So what we had is some very senior PR practitioners using star shapes and heart shapes to map out their activity. But I've had so many people on this course that it's fascinating. I've had at least 3 or 4 comms officers for the Department for Exiting the EU. And all I'll say about that is I was working with a chap and he was just trying to map out activity for deal or no deal. And I was like, dude, you can't even begin to plan this. You're just gonna have to respond to change. And then there was a point where he was like, I think the backstop post-it note has just fallen off the Kanban. It's just gone. So yeah, it's for some people, I've had 1 or 2 on the course that are I'm never going to use this, I don't like it, it's a waste of time, but mostly people come away and go, this has blown my mind a little bit. So other fun applications, how am I doing for time? Ages? 15. Okay, we can have a chat, or just go for lunch. Okay. Oh, English National Ballet. I did an in-house session with English National Ballet for the whole team. So the course that I tend to run it is quite basic, but it introduces the manifesto and the principles, but also things like goal setting. And it's mind-blowing for people to start thinking about at an entry level for Agile, how to value projects based on how you deliver value, not when you're not to deliver against time or budget. And that alone blows people's minds. But I just quite like the fact that we had to do it in a ballet studio, and we had to stick post-it notes to the mirrors. And we were helping to plan the fact that they're moving their building where they operate from quite an old school, beautiful ballet studios and operations near the Royal Albert Hall, and they're moving to a whole new jazz hands amazing space at London City Island. So we were mapping out the internal comms process for all of these different people, and we did a whole persona brainstorm where I think the personas were ballet dancer, orchestra member, and there were 2 others, but it was how does the ballet dancer think? And they don't actually read email. They just don't, because they're always like obviously pirouetting around a ballet studio. So thinking about how do we communicate with them. But we had a lovely mix of everybody from production team to like the people that take care of tours to like almost like roadies, marketing team, events team. This here, I don't know if anyone has come across Claire Easton-Bassett, who used to run Agile on the Beach. That's her there, and that's her when now she works at the English National Ballet. And this last bit is kind of my favourite. Personal trainers and pole dancers. So I do these little taster sessions, normally for charity or for free. I had a really mixed bag of people recently, where I had like accountants and graphic designers, which kind of makes sense. And then I had personal trainers and a pole dancing instructor. So I introduced them to the manifesto and a little bit of Kanban. And this one on the left is from a personal training business based in Cornwall called ThinkFit. And excuse me, they have used it. They are obsessed with using Kanban now, and they've used it to launch a whole new eating plan and nutrition plan with a cookbook. And that's actually the lady who runs the business. That's her 12-year-old daughter who wanted to more beautifully arrange the Post-it notes. But similarly, again, like I was saying, kids seem to love it. So she absolutely loves working with this, and she's got sparkly Sharpies and things. And then this one was my pole dancing friend, hence the pole dancing reference. And she was like, well, I'm going to use this to plan out my next competition routine. And she has some quite wild ideas, and she's doing really well. So she's a semi-professional. She's at semi-professional level, so she teaches pole, but she also then competes. And she was like, right, well, I want to plan this routine, and the routine's going to be based around the fact that there's going to be a dead body on the stage, and I am going to be dealing with this dead body as part of my pole routine. And instead of earth, I'm going to have glitter. And so I need different props. I need props: spade, fake blood, body. Body was actually another human. So this is all the things that she had to sort out to help her map out her routine. So it's like song choice, travel plan, dog sitting, makeup test run. And so she came second in her particular heat. Do you want to see a photo of her in action? No, yes, no. My friend was like, you can't show them this. There we go. So she's got her shovel and her dead body. I always wonder what's appropriate in this. I was telling everyone last year about how I snagged a boyfriend using Post-it notes. So if you want to look at any of the kind of articles that the Scrum Alliance publishes, they have nearly gone onto the website now, which is Agile Matters, which is now actually available to everybody. You don't have to be a member to access the content anymore, which is really helpful. So I've got 3 of my more recent ones are on there. And if you actually the most recent one, you'll see Toby and my brain's gone. What's his business partner called? Yes, thank you. Toby and Craig on there, because it's about agile leadership, and there's some lovely quotes in there from Caitlin Gould from Blue Fruit about leadership and how you can incorporate agile into a culture. So that's a more recent article. I've got a whole 15 minutes left. I told you it'd be MVP. 10 minutes, told you it'd be MVP. So what I would say is, if you would like to explore doing an article with Scrum Alliance for their platform, talk to me, and I'd love to get some ideas, because essentially all I do is I pitch to the editor, and he just always says yes. So it's fun for me, it's kind of quite good money for me, and I just really enjoy geeking out about different applications of Agile in interesting places. Don't know, what, any questions?